Can you hear me? Yeah. Fantastic, lovely. That's me. There's a lot of words on there, isn't there? Okay, this session's, to be honest, is about trying to get you thinking a little bit. I'll put something out there straight away. It's always great following other speakers because you can work out which bits of your slides that they managed to inadvertently nick before you get there. And I'll just preface this by saying me and Glenn have been following each other around the industry for the last Christ knows how many years, but I'm absolutely with him. This isn't about compliance. I can show you lots and lots of perfectly compliant vehicles and drivers who've gone out and killed somebody. This is beyond compliance. It's about managing risk. Compliance, as Glenn said, absolutely right, is absolute bottom level stuff. That's the minimum requirement. Okay, let's tell me a little bit about what I do, what my company does, etc., etc., etc. Because everybody thinks they know what National Highways or Highways Agency or whatever we think they're called this week actually do. We're an at-arm's length government body. We have a single stakeholder, which is whoever this week's Secretary of State for Transport is. We're responsible for the 4,300 miles of motorway and what we call APTR. You'll thank me if this ever comes up in a pub quiz. APTR are all-purpose trunk roads. So they're big fast A roads between towns and cities, which isn't to say we're not interested and we're not influencing in roads which aren't on our network, including roads in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, etc., etc. And indeed, we do an awful lot of work internationally with other highways agencies. Those roads are about 4% of all the roads in England, if you measure them by length, but they carry about a third of all traffic. And my friendly geeks that give out analysis data haven't quite worked out that vans are part of freight, so the 60% of freight just talks about the trucks that are on our network, and I'm guessing you guys are all big users of the network. I'll just point out at this stage I'm contractually obliged to stick my fingers in my ear and go la 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 if anybody asks me a question about cones or smart motorways, so let's just get that one out there straight away. Okay. I have two roles in National Highways. I head up the Commercial Vehicle Incident Prevention team, got a couple of my team in the audience, wave at everybody people and look like you're friendly, there they are, Rich and Fiona. Fundamentally a team of project managers looking for interventions, projects, wizard wheezes, call it what you will. We will shamelessly steal any ideas that you guys have to reduce casualties on our network, so please talk to us. And that's fundamentally the single KPI which we're judged on within the team, is the number of people who manage to kill and injure themselves on our roads each year, so just bear that in mind. I'm also, and I love getting this one in, after many, many years in effectively the private sector, I find myself a civil servant with the kind of job titles that come along with a civil service role. I am the Senior Responsible Officer. About having a job title with the word responsible in, my mum's so impressed. Got no idea what to do, but anyway. For our Driving for Better Business. Driving for Better Business is an engagement awareness campaign provided through National Highways to try and draw attention to the risks that are involved with driving for work, and also the solutions and some of the ideas we can share with people to make it better. So a quick show of hands. This is warming you up for the audience participation bit. Who's heard of Driving for Better Business? Well, that's better than usual. Still not great, but the marketing budget well spent. Do me a favour, when you're out of here, a bit later on tonight, reeling from all of the input you've had today, have a Google for Driving for Better Business. There's loads and loads and loads of free resources in there. I promise you it's not a catch. Use them, abuse them. I'm sure there's stuff in there you'll find useful for your organisations. If you don't like it, let me know. If you do like it, use it and tell people about it. Yeah, deal? Deal? Fantastic, great. Okay, number 5. In my world, what do you think the word number 5 indicates and stands for? Somebody's mentioned it this morning, actually, funnily enough. Yeah. Typically 5 people will die on our roads today, and tomorrow, and tomorrow. How many people have we got here, Charlie?
About 170.
About 170? Yeah, we'd do you a lot in a month. And you probably heard me shouting at this, and I've got to be honest, it's maybe not the most politically correct thing I've ever shouted, but there was that terrible news story a few weeks ago, wasn't there, about the 8 people that died trying to cross the channel when the boat sank. 8 people. Big news story, and absolutely rightly so. Where was a news story that said, actually, this is a really boring bit of news, but guess what? Another 5 people have died on our road today. But don't worry about it. We'll be back and tell you tomorrow that another 5 people have died on our roads today. We had a bad weekend. We had 5 people die on the M1 up in Cumbria. It's dangerous. 1700. Anybody has a clue what 1700 is in my world?
Very sweet. It's a thing.
Number of people who die each year. 1700. 10 times the room. Let's try this one. 20 million.
in the world is losing its cap.
Nah. It's broadly the number of vehicles which we reckon are driven for work purposes in the UK. It's a really difficult figure to actually get to be brutally honest, because journey purpose isn't particularly well reported across the crash stats that we have back. It's not really statistically robust. But we just did a bit of a back of a fag packet calculator. Well, we had an idea. We wanted to go and freeze a mile of motorway and go and take ourselves down there, knock on everybody's windows, ask them what they were doing down on our roads. Now, to be honest, we couldn't do it, not because we're not good at freezing a mile of motorway. We're bloody good at that. What we're actually not very good at is getting all the signs formed off to go and knock on people's windows and ask them what they're doing down there. So we tried another approach. We know that broadly there's about 500,000 trucks in the UK. They're being driven for work. There's about 5.2 million vans registered. We know that from the registration numbers. Great majority of them are going to be driven for work purposes. That gets me to 5.7 million vehicles. And let's just emphasise I'm talking vehicles now, not drivers, but 5.7 million vehicles. There's broadly about 1 million or so company cars. HMRC tell us a number that's declining, but let's just work with 1 million. So that gets me to 6.2 million. You again get into the wild west of grey fleet. There are all sorts of estimates online about how many grey fleet vehicles there are, anywhere between 10 and 25 million I've seen, so it's not particularly accurate. So we just went, let's get, maybe it's about 13, 14 million. One, because that's quite a conservative figure, so nobody can accuse us of over-egging it, but also, rather conveniently, it adds up to about 20 million. And the reason that's important, that 20 million, coincidentally, is about half of all the vehicles registered in the UK. Now, I bet you, if you took yourself down to a bit of your favourite motorway on a work day and had a look at the vehicles going past, it'd be way more than half the vehicles out there are being driven for work purposes. And the reason we make a big song and dance about this, they're influenceable. As tragic as it is that little Jessica dies on a day trip out with her granddad, quite difficult to do anything about it. People who are driving for work are influenceable. I know somebody asked earlier, how many of you guys are responsible for the operation of fleet? Stick your hands up, please. Okay, let's try this one. And it is a trick question before I tell you. How many of you people are responsible for health and safety within your organisations? What, so you're not, and you're not. We're all responsible for health and safety in our businesses. And health and safety obligations extend out onto the road, so there are lots of levers that we can pull. Let's try this one, 135. You're on my own territory now, I only live 5 miles up the road. If you had your ear cocked to the Black Country, West Midlands a couple of weeks ago, you'd have probably heard me yelling at the television. And it wasn't another crap England football game. It was watching somebody from HSC tell everybody what a great year they'd had last year, because only 135 people died at work last year. 1,700 people died on our roads, and at least half of the vehicles out there are being driven for work. How do those numbers add up? What they were actually saying was 135 people died in RID or reportable incidents last year. Road incidents are not RID or reportable. And just ask yourselves within your own organisations, do you take RID or reportable incidents more seriously than non-RID or reportable incidents? I'm not asking you to reply, but I bet you do. We do. And that's wrong, isn't it? Let's try the 80% figure. We did a very unscientific little survey on LinkedIn a few weeks ago where we just asked that question, does your business take RID or reportable incidents more seriously than non-RID or reportable incidents? 80% of the 170 odd respondents came back to say, yeah, we do. And then we wonder why we don't really make much difference. In common with most highways authorities in Western Europe, North America, Australasia, all the rest of it, we've all experienced and all seen a fairly consistent decline in casualties on our roads over the last 10, 15, 20 years, and we all plateaued about 5 years ago. And the kind of accepted wisdom is a lot of the good stuff about making roads safer has been done. A lot of the good stuff about vehicles becoming safer. There's still a lot of work to do in the commercial vehicle space in vans and trucks, but cars are a damn sight more safer. Crashes are more survivable than they ever were. And what you're actually left with is people. It's people crashing. They just happen to be in a vehicle at the time. Who does a lottery? Yeah, you haven't won yet, have you? You know what your odds are of winning the lottery? It's about 1 in 143 million. Somebody told me once, I don't know how true it is, but it sounds plausible, is you've got more chance of walking up to somebody in the street and guessing their phone number than you have of winning the lottery. Now, trust me, it's a lousy chat-up line. I have tried it. It didn't work. Do you know what your chances are of being killed in a crash or being killed by a crash in the UK this year?
10.
It's about 1 in 25,000. I'll forgive Bear your blushes, James. James from Tesco, we do a lot of work together. Tesco employ, what is it, about 236,000 people, James? Statistically, you've got every chance of losing about 12, 13 people this year within your organisation to crashes. Might not be their fault, they might be completely innocent bystanders, but I hope that puts it into context for everybody a little bit. And your chances of being injured and suffering life-changing injuries are way more than that. So, it's personal. This is a bit of still from a video we produced for a conference we do. Have a look at our Driving Change website afterwards on there. But the premise we're coming from is that vehicles don't crash. Most vehicles are out there for work purposes, therefore they can be influenced. And it's personal because it's the people that crash, and we talk about the 4 known unknowns. It's why we put the pictures of the drivers above the vehicles. It's not the vehicles that are crashing, it's the people that are crashing. They're just in a vehicle at the time. And we talk about the 4 known unknowns, and we've working with Glenn, this phrase of driver roadworthiness is absolutely key to us. So when we look back at the fatal collisions on our network over the last 10, 15 years or so, very rarely do we see a vehicle that causes the crash. Might make it worse, but it's always about what we call the 4 known unknowns: distraction, impairment, fatigue, medical conditions. And the reason we say they're unknown is we don't know what the mix is, we don't know what the proportionality is, but we know they're in there, and we're doing some research on that at the moment. We also think there's a 5th, and the 5th is attitude. And somebody's touched on this already this morning. It's the attitude of that driver who, God, I can't be bothered doing my checks this morning, I'm absolutely bloody knackered, but I'm still going to go out there and do my stuff. It's the attitude of that supervisor who doesn't like confrontation, so doesn't call things out. It's the attitude of that manager, director, who don't want to interrupt their operational basis because they're going to get battered for their delivery KPIs or whatever it happens to be. It's that attitude, and it's that lack of attitude that causes crashes. Anybody recognise this still? It's from a very good, I think, Australian road safety advert. The bloke on the left of the screen for you was walking down the promenade the day after the crash fatality figures for this particular Australian state had been announced on the news. And the only way this thing was fixed, he was told to say 70. When you ask the question, say 70. So he's walking down the street, what looks like a news reporter sticks a microphone under his nose and says, did you see the terrible figures about the crashes in New South Wales or wherever it was? 140 people died last year, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? Oh, it's terrible, terrible, terrible. Okay. What do you think is an acceptable number? 70. As he said 70 people walk around the corner at him. You're looking at his wife, his mum, his dad, his in-laws, his kids, the lads he plays football with at the weekend, people he works with. So all of a sudden it's personal, isn't it? So what I'm trying to do today is get you thinking, but also to understand your superpowers. You're the converted. You know how to run fleets safely and well and everything else that goes along with it. But what about the people you can influence? What about the rest of your workforce? They might not be involved with driving, but isn't it in your benefit if they get to work in one piece to do their job? What about the people within your supply chain? Your suppliers, those of you who are selling services out, your customers and your clients? Because to be blunt, we're all in this together. The only way we have a chance of reaching our target of 0 casualties, 0 fatalities on our road is by us all working together. So understand it, understand your influence. And I'm always very conscious at these events, we are so much preaching to the converted. But think about your power, your influence individually and as an organisation. Do your family know the right things to be doing? Do your co-workers know the right things to be doing? Are your businesses throwing their weight around amongst your suppliers and your supply chain to do this? We've got 7,000 people employed by Highways. We have 65, 70,000 within our supply chain. We're working with those. Think about your reach, your people, your customers, your suppliers and your peers. And you've all heard, I think, probably that phrase that gets used a lot about 6 degrees of separation. We're all linked together. We can influence stuff. So please, go away, have a look at the DFBB website, have a look at the Driving Change website. If you need to get hold of me, please do. We're all about talking and all about trying to influence, but you have a superpower. Flex your muscles. Let's keep people safe. Thank you.
Just stay there, Mark. Just stay there. Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark from anyone? No? I think you've stunned them all with all your stats, Mark. I'll do a summary of some of your stats at the start of the afternoon session as well. I think just to reiterate what Mark said, just comes in a second, Darren, is the Driving for Better business, it's there for a reason. It is free. there's no gimmicks to it, and there is some really, really good resources there for you to be safe and compliant, and to train your drivers to be better drivers as well as you being better managers. Darren's just got one quick question. Darren?
No, I wanted to reinforce something you said, just with an example if I can. As there were no questions.
Yeah, just that I've been in road safety since 1998, which seems an age for me. I didn't realise I was that old, particularly on a night out. But Mark said at the end there that we have people that we can influence. My wife tells me when we go cycling with the kids, and I'm trying to get them to wear the helmet, and she's not bothered about it, and she won't wear a helmet. Darren, you suck the fucking fun out of everything. And then we all have a big argument, and then we cycle off somewhere, and nobody cycles with each other. That's somebody that I've lived with for 17 years. It's really, really difficult to influence the people around us, but we've got to keep trying, and we have to keep trying. And I'll never stop retwisting her seatbelt back to the right position when she's got in and just shoved it around her and she can't be bothered which position it's in. I'll never stop doing that, because that's what we have to do.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Cheers, Mark. Thank you very much. Last round of applause for Mark, please. Thank you.